This is The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama. How are we doing today on this hump day? Hope you and yours are doing well. Hope you are recovering from the Crimson Tide's loss to Vanderbilt. We'll continue to dive on into it right here on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. You're watching us on the Bama Central YouTube channel. You can find us right there, or you can find us on your favorite podcast platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. The Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. We are your home for the Alabama Crimson Tide on SI. Right there, you can just type in Bama Central into your Google machine and we'll pop right up. We invite you to jump in and join us today on the comment section at Joe Gaither 6. If you want to be a part of today's program, we are going to talk about the Alabama defense. We're going to talk about Malachi Moore. We're going to talk about my buddy Brooks Austin and his film breakdown. We'll talk about Deontay Lawson just a little bit. South Carolina, because it's time to move on. You got to move on to the next opponent. You cannot sit in mourning as we are here on Wednesday. You got to start moving on eventually. So we'll talk about South Carolina, and we'll talk about the Alabama injury report as Coach Kalen DeVore gave a small update during the SEC coaches teleconference today. So that will be our order of operations today, mostly focusing on the Alabama defense and then kind of touching in on South Carolina before we touch on the Alabama injury report. We invite you guys to jump in, of course, on the comment section at Joe Gaither 6. You can leave me a comment, a question, a query, or complaint, or you can steer the conversation in another direction if you want us to talk about a different aspect of the Crimson Tide or SEC football. You can leave us a comment right there as well. Like I said, we are live here in the Derek Daniels State Farm studio. If you're watching us online, you can see that. If you are listening to us on the podcast platforms, you can hear that. The sound quality much better in the Derek Daniel State Farm studios. You can call Derek Daniel today, 205-758-3391, like a good neighbor right here in Northport. Derek Daniel at State Farm is there. Call and see how much Derek can save you today. So let's get right into it. The Alabama defense has been the big subject for the last, 5 days now, as Kane Womack is basically undergoing his trial by fire. Is the 4-2-5 an effective defensive plan? Oh my gosh, can the Swarm defense work in the SEC? What in the world happened against Vanderbilt? Why wasn't there any adjustments made? Blah, 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 cry. Oh my goodness. Too much noise. And as Robbie Oates said yesterday, so eloquently, it's very good. You got to be careful not to overreact. Now, Robbie was obviously not a defensive player, but saying you got to not overreact to a loss. What you do, you look at the film, you assess what you did right, you assess what you did wrong, and then you learn from it and move on. And so that's what Alabama is trying to do at the moment. But as it goes, looking at the film, we've got our buddy Brooks Austin. He joined us at SEC Media Days. He covers the Georgia Bulldogs on SI. He's basically one of our relative sites of the On SI network covering the Georgia Bulldogs. And he is big time into film, a higher step up than I am. Absolutely. I like to watch the film, but he is doing a lot more work with it. And yesterday he put on, oh my goodness, one of the most egregious, an indictment almost of the Alabama defense. And Kane Womack basically running cover one robber the entire game against Vanderbilt in third and medium situations, enabling Vanderbilt to know what to expect and kind of scheme you up, which is why you had some of these passes where it was just like, oh my gosh, nobody was around him. Where is the guy? His guy was likely getting picked because that was happening a lot of the times, or his guy was likely getting out-leveraged. That was happening a lot of times as well. And so it looked really bad yesterday on the Twitter.com, but it wasn't really that bad. Because Brooks admits it in his film breakdown that, yeah, there are opportunities for these Alabama players to make plays to stop Vanderbilt from and get off the field. You've got Red Morgan button up a tackle on 3rd and 8 with, a 2-yard cushion and getting drugged 3 more yards. We talked about it on Monday. The point of attack, getting guys down at the point of attack, it was a huge problem for Alabama this past weekend. And so I think that you run into two different things. One, it looks bad on film when Brooks lays it out there. Absolutely. And there's nothing that he is saying that is wrong. We'll just make that as a big caveat as well. But basically, he outlines that Alabama gets Vanderbilt into 3rd and 6, into 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, and then is running cover one robber. If you're not familiar with that, everybody's man-to-man. You got a kind of a deep safety, and you got a linebacker who's playing kind of a hook zone right there in the middle, kind of mirroring what the quarterback's doing, trying to pick up a crosser or two, make things tough on the quarterback. And so if you know what's happening, you know what the scheme is for Alabama, all right, it's a little bit easier to get after him. What Kane Womack's thinking is, well, I've got dudes on the defensive line, and I can get after you, three, 4 guys on the defensive line, put some pressure on Diego Pavia, and, I've got dudes. We've been playing man coverage all season long, and it has been working out for us outside of, say, the second half against Georgia. And I think that there's a little element of, not throwing away the second half performance against Georgia, but Kane Womack kind of saying, and really the Alabama coaching staff kind of saying, look, Georgia was in a desperate situation. Do we really count that as real information? Do we really count that as quantified? Do we really add that into our files? Or is this kind of gets into outlier territory? Because you're not going to play teams that often when you are up, 21 points, 28 points, going into the locker room, 30 to 7, so 23 points. You're not going to be playing teams that often, up 23 points in the second half, where they're going for it on 4th down all the time, just chucking and ducking down the field. I think there was a small element of Kane Womack and the coaching staff kind of saying, okay, this is a special circumstance. And I don't know if we really need to take this into our information. But then you go to Vanderbilt and you say, okay, well, our guys are better than their guys are. And that's not any different today on Wednesday after the loss than it was on Saturday during the loss or last week during the game planning. Look, we talked about it last week. I dropped the talent composite ranking Alabama the number 1 talent composite in the country, Vanderbilt at number 50, and that it shouldn't be a game. And yes, I've got egg on my face for Vanderbilt winning the game, definitely. But still, on Wednesday after the upset, Alabama is more talented than Vanderbilt is. But what Vanderbilt's done is they said, okay, you have played this 4-2-5 system, and we are going to kind of revert back to old school football principles. You're seeing the triple option, you're seeing the veer, you're seeing lots of these concepts of the kind of the wishbone and the flex. And that's kind of making it tough on these on these gap-centric defenses. I don't think that really Kane Womack did a bad job over the weekend. I think that really when it comes to calling cover one on third and long, we'll just say specifically to that, because you're kind of trying to guard a lot of things at one time. And when you're guarding against a triple option team, you are really playing just what's my assignment? What is my assignment? If I am the pitch man, then I got to go guard the running back. If I am the quarterback is my assignment, then I have to, go after the quarterback and force the pitch. If I am taking the dive, then I got to squeeze down and take the dive. Basically, you've got to play your assignment so the other 10 guys on the field can play their assignment. And if all 10 guys are playing their assignment, then option football becomes harder to sustain from an offensive standpoint. But if one guy, if 2 guys, if even more guys get out of their gap, then option football becomes, rolling down the field, right down your throat. What you saw on Saturday, 42 minutes of football on 75 plays, is 416 yards, is 40 points, and is an upset. So really, was Kane Womack wrong for calling cover one pretty much the whole time? No, because are the Alabama athletes better than the Vanderbilt athletes? Are the Alabama football players better than the Vanderbilt football players? Yes, objectively still, yes. Now, did they play better? Absolutely not. Not even close. Not even close. You have to give the Vanderbilt players a lot of credit for making plays and for saying, okay, here's what the scheme is. It's my turn to go make a play. I've got to go, I've got to run through the arm tackles that Red Morgan's putting out there right there in the slot. Or I've got to run through arm tackles from Deontay Lawson and the like and get to the first down. Vanderbilt made more plays than Alabama did. But I don't know that it was really a scheme difference because, look, Vanderbilt goes right down the field. Their first drive, 10 plays, kind of really like a hot knife through butter, bullying Alabama. They get that second drive that's extended by penalties, duplicate number penalty, Quindarius Robinson with the unnecessary roughness, roughing the passer penalty, extending two drives, right? Extending the drive, 17 plays. But Alabama starts to adjust and starts to get Vanderbilt into these third and long. So there were adjustments to the run game. Really and truly, I'll go back to the Monday show. I think that Alabama just struggled tackling. And that's concerning from my standpoint. That's concerning from my point of view going forward. And hopefully it's just a lack of want to or a lack of focus on the day. From an Alabama standpoint. So I think that that is something that can be worked out. But really, I don't know that necessarily. I think that there's an overreaction, a little bit of an overreaction online to the Brooks Austin clip of, we're running cover one robber. Look, what else are you going to be running? Are you going to be blitzing them? You absolutely can be blitzing them. But I think that there was a certain element of, and yeah, goodness gracious, Kane Womack definitely deserves criticism for this. But I think there was a certain element of, okay, we've got them with our base package. We've got them with some of our base concepts. Our guys are better than their guys. I trust our guys. Now, can you fault Kane Womack for trusting his guys? No, I don't think you can. But I do think that there is a small element of you got to be able to recognize that, hey, I do trust my guys. I do think we're really talented, but maybe there needs to be a little bit of help to affect Diego Pavia. I mean, you look at stat broadcast, no quarterback pressures. You look on stat broadcast and all the stats, no sacks. You didn't really get after Diego Pavia. He had 7 tackles for a loss, and 3 of them coming from Quindarius Robinson, who played his absolute tail off. But I think that Kane Womack kind of got caught in a little bit of arrogance and saying, okay, my guys are better. We don't have to show much. We're going to want to save some of these defensive concepts for when we're playing Tennessee, for when we're playing maybe even Oklahoma or Auburn or into the playoff if you're playing Georgia again. And so I think he got a little arrogance and caught in that over the weekend. But I don't think that really – I don't think it's that big of a sin to be calling cover one robber that many times on third down because I think you have confidence in your guys. I do think that Womack might have mixed it up just a hair, mixed it up a little bit. But given what Vanderbilt was doing, what Vanderbilt was doing offensively, I think that's probably the play because of all the things that you're trying to guard against. You're trying to guard against a lot of the triple options. Everybody's got to be basically winning their box. And simple as that. The players on the field didn't win their box. Now, could Womack have done a couple of things differently? Sure. And when you lose, you're going to complain about literally everything all the way down to the clothing of the coaches. But I think that what it comes down to is that Vanderbilt came ready to play on Saturday, and Alabama absolutely didn't. I think that really and truly that's all it comes down to. One other thing is when you get into these adjustments, and I've had a couple comments come in about and asking about Alabama's defense and asking about what happens when the play gets broken. You see Diego Pavia get out on the perimeter, and sometimes these quarterbacks have gotten out on the perimeter, and you've had broken plays, you've had receivers running open down the field, and I think that when you made some adjustments on Saturday. Part of the adjustments, especially personnel-wise, look, I think that personnel-wise, you are putting a lot of guys on the field, but who are you really confident in championship situations? I think that list is very slim, especially on the defensive front. You look at it, you're confident in Tim Keenan, Tim Smith. Are you confident in Jamarian Latham and LT Overton? Yeah, they've had big plays, and they've both flashed bigly, but have they been consistent? I'm not quite sure. And yeah, you've seen Damian Payne play really, really well in spurts, and James Smith has played really, really well in spurts. But who do you have confidence in championship situations? I think there's just a little lax in essentially respecting the Vanderbilt Commodores. And so when you see some of these mistakes, I think it's due to confidence in the defense, confidence in knowledge of the defense, knowing the defense like the back of their hand. Look, these guys have been running the Coach Saban system for 3, 4, 5 years, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, depending on who they are. Unless they're a true freshman, everybody's having to change their rules. And I think that really and truly, it ran into a team on Saturday night that had true belief and knew what their rules were and knew what they wanted to do. And it turned out poorly for Alabama, and we will see if they can improve for Saturday. Now let's go to some comments here. My man Tyler White's leaving me some comments. I appreciate Tyler for doing that. You can do it on the Facebook section if you want to, Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube at Joe Gaither 6. Let's read them. Watching film back, who do you think was the most susceptible to whiffing assignments? To me, it seemed like Lawson and our safeties had pretty rough games. Also, have you gone back and watched the strip sack fumble against Milroe? Unbelievable to me that they called roughing up the passer against Bama in the first half, but don't call roughing on that as the rusher unimpeded drove his helmet straight into Milroe's chin. Ooh, spicy, and I like it, Tyler White. Let's start with the first part. Watching the film back, who do you think was the most susceptible to whiffing assignments? Golly, I hate identifying it because these are college guys, and I guess now they're not quite college guys because of the NIL, so maybe they're semi-professional. But yeah, your comment's spot on. To me, it seemed like Lawson and our safeties had pretty rough games. I think that Lawson had rough games. I think Jamarian Latham had a rough game. I think that Jihad Campbell had a rough game. I mean, when I went through and did my chart about yards after contact, I mean, it was 4 or 5 times for Deontay Lawson getting drove down the field. And I know you're trying to strip the ball, man. I know you're trying to strip the ball and create these havoc plays. But at some point, you just got to get the ball carrier on the ground. You just have to get the ball carrier on the ground. I think that really and truly, the guys just... What it looked like is they started to play the option one way. They came into the game playing the option one way, and then they tried to change responsibilities in the middle of the game. And I think that it was just confusion all day long of who had to dive, who had the quarterback, who had the pitch man, and really who's keeping contained. All kinds of responsibilities I think were lost on Saturday. But as far as missed tackles, yeah, my man Deontay Lawson, I'm a big fan of his, but had a very difficult day. Now, have you gone back and watched the strip sack fumble against Mill? Unbelievable that they called roughing against Bama in the first half, but don't call roughing on the rusher unimpeded drove the helmet straight into Milroe's chin. All right, big can of worms here, because I personally think the roughing the passer call on Quandarius Robinson, is it a tough call? Yes, but it's a penalty. It's a penalty all day, every day. Is it a really letter of the law call? Yes, it is. But Quandarius Robinson had his hand up, came down on Diego Pavia's face mask, and did he bring him down? No. Did he follow through? No. Did he axe hammer him? No. It wasn't even like a big old hammer, coming down. It wasn't anything. It wasn't a chop. He just had his hands up, and it was my forearm ran into your face mask. It was unfortunate. It's unfortunate. It's a terrible break for Alabama right there, because you're going to get a field goal try and you're going to get off the field. I mean, it's a 4-point swing because Vanderbilt ends up getting into the end zone right there, and boom. I mean, it doesn't win the game as you lost by, but it is just another instance. It's a tough call. It's a tough call, but by the letter of the law, it was contact with the head. Now, for the Milroe thing, I didn't pay attention to that aspect. Tyler White, the driving of the helmet into Jalen Milroe's chest. But what I was fascinated with, and Coach Kapilovic talked about it today as we met with the coaches, talked about it today, saying, okay, you're in hurry-up mode. This is in the fourth quarter. You're all remembering this. This is the fourth quarter. Alabama's trying to come back, and you get a big chunk play down the middle of the field. And I think it was the play to Jeremy Bernard. I'm pretty sure down the right-hand sideline. But you've gotten a big chunk play. You're here just on the other side of the midfield, and you're ready to keep it rolling. Well, Elijah Pritchett is stuck nose to nose with the Vanderbilt defender. And okay, look, it was a chippy game. It was a really chippy game. And part of that was because Vanderbilt was basically the little engine that could. Basically, we're going to, I had a coach that used to call it the 5-mile dog. We're going to nip at your heels for 5 miles, and you're just going to steadily, it's a gruesome picture, but bleed out of your ankles till you can't run anymore. We're just going to keep nipping at you until you can't run anymore. And that's what Vanderbilt did. And so here they are in this moment. I'm still nipping at you. Yeah, you got a big play, but I'm going to get you on the next play. Yeah, this kind of thing. Being a nuisance, like they should, as an underdog. I'm not criticizing Vanderbilt, but this is just what it was. Alabama, the favorite, needs to have its head on his shoulders, needs to be focused. But in the moment, Elijah Pritchett jawing back at the Vanderbilt defender. And whether it was Jaden Roberts or Jalen Milroe, we've had kind of mixed discussions in the media circles since then. I thought it was Jalen Milroe that went over to Elijah Pritchett and grabbed him and said, hey, we got to go get lined up, right? Come on, get lined up. The very next snap, it's a bad set from Elijah Pritchett. It's a speed rush from Vanderbilt, and it's a sack fumble. And I guess, Tyler, you might have a point here. It could have been, I guess, a roughing the passer for driving through for Jalen Milroe. But I was just so shocked that just in the moment, it's just another picture. So many little pictures on the day of lack of focus. You talk about the duplicate number penalty. We talked about it on Monday. Everybody's talked about Malachi Moore, and I got more to say about Malachi in just a moment. But just every little thing on Saturday was just led to, who is this team? Are y'all focused? Are y'all even in Nashville today? Vanderbilt, they took the field, but Alabama sure seemed to not quite be plugged in on the day. So that was pretty disappointing to watch. But yeah, I guess you might have a point. Now that I think about it, you probably do have a point, Tyler, that Jalen Milroe could have been called for Alabama. And what a huge swing that would have been to go from a Vanderbilt first down to an Alabama first down and 15 yards. That would have been a huge, huge swing. And everybody would have said, oh, the SEC pulling the strings for Alabama, pulling the strings for the Crimson Tide. I don't really believe in that, but I know many people do. I think the officials, I don't really think they had a very bad day. I know that a lot of people were not happy with them online. I guess anytime you lose, you're going to be upset with the officials. I didn't think that they had that bad of a day. I think really only Alabama has themselves to blame. All right, let's keep it going here today. We appreciate everybody who's hanging out with us on the Twitter machine, on the Facebook, and on the YouTube channel at Joe Gaither 6. You can find us on the BamaCentral YouTube channel. And we are right here in the Derek Daniel studio. Right here, Derek Daniel, State Farm in Northport. You can call him today at 205-758-3391. Call and see how much Derek can save you today. All right, we want to talk about Malachi Moore. We're going to talk about Malachi Moore, then we're going to talk about South Carolina thoughts, and then we'll talk about the injury report for Alabama as it's about to come out later tonight. But Coach Kalen DeBoer talked about it on the teleconference. So Malachi, look, got to give him a lot of credit. A lot of credit, first off. Give Malachi a lot of credit because media on Tuesday, we're driving up. Are they going to make Malachi available? I don't know. Maybe they will. We'll see. Let's find out. And I thought to myself, I think they will. I think he's going to want to speak on this, want to stay out in front of this. Obviously, he put out the apology, the statement. And then he led off with, apology again, and I want to own it. And he revealed that he's reached out to Diego Pavia on Instagram. Great stuff for Malachi on that. But he stepped in. Well, you tell me. I think stepped in a little bit of hot water with the second part of his press conference, the second part of his little press availability. He is, going into details on the game and says, oh, we got the calls in late. Again, that gave us anxiety. We've got to get our cleats in the ground. We got to get the call in so we can get our cleats in the ground so we can go kick butt. Now, Malachi, is he wrong? No, he is not wrong. I'm sitting up there in the Vanderbilt press box, and I'm seeing the guys get lined up late. A lot. They're getting lined up late. Everybody's getting to the formation. Everybody's swapping sides and getting lined up late. And that's definitely a problem. But on this week, at this time, in this moment, in these circumstances, might have been better to keep that one behind closed doors, just a hair. Now, I get it. Malachi just answered a question honestly, and me as a media member, I greatly appreciate that. Definitely appreciate that because it makes my job easier. And look, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. The call's getting in late. At least it was in the Vanderbilt game, and I think that that's probably been a bit of a trend throughout the entire season. And as a former average, I repeat, very, very average high school football player who played on the defensive side of the ball, it makes all the difference in the world to get the call in and know, oh, this is my responsibility. This is my man. This is my stance. This is my technique. And here we go way before the snap. And I'm ready to go fire off and do something. Again, super average. And I would imagine that the concept carries over to the super talented that are inside the Malachi Moore Athletic Facility. So, all right. Is he wrong, Malachi? No, you're not wrong. The call does need to get in quicker. But I wonder to myself, is Malachi's comments directed towards Kane Womack, or are they directed towards Deontay Lawson? That's why I wonder, that's why I suggest that maybe they should have been dealt with in-house. Now, obviously, the actual conversation about getting the calls in has been dealt with in-house, right? You having that on Sunday, you having that on Monday before the week comes. Hey, coach, can we talk about something? We think it'd be better if the calls got in quicker. And then they talk about how that happens, right? Great. That happens really behind closed doors. But I wonder if Coach Womack is getting calls in, and is it Deontay not getting the calls out to the other 10 defenders? I don't know because I don't have the headsets on. I don't know because I don't have the feed. So, I'm not going to sit here and speculate that it's on Deontay, but it could be on. It's one or the other. It's either Coach Womack not getting it into Deontay, or Deontay not getting it out to the team. Either way, it's got to get better as the season continues. And I think this is I think it plays into maybe the confusion or maybe the, oh my gosh, why is Alabama getting driven off the ball? Well, they're not getting set. They're not getting set before the snap. They're not getting set. They're not getting lined up before their man across the line of scrimmage is trying to drive them 3, 4, 5 yards off the field. So they're processing the call, X, Y, Z, A, B, C call, and now I got to line up, and the snap, and I'm getting driven off the ball, and what's my technique here on this play, and where's my gap? Oh, I'm in the B gap. Oh, it should be in the C gap. I think it happens really, really fast. And so, yes, Malachi, you are correct. But it did rub me a little bit, not the wrong way, because I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I like the drama. I like potential drama. You know that about me. I like anything potentially juicy. I don't think this is really juicy. I don't think that he's throwing Kane Womack under the bus or Deontay Lawson under the bus. I think it's just a fact of life. I think it's just a fact of the matter. This is something we have to do better as a group. Okay, great. But maybe this week should have left it in-house, considering all the circumstances going on with your own play and your own, not really, I hate to even call it off the field issue or on the field issue, because it's not really an issue. He just had an outburst. He just had an emotional moment. And I think that I think he's going to be fine. I think Alabama's defense is going to be fine. I think that really maybe it's going to start. Look, you think back to what it made me think about. Was two things. My initial reaction was, Malachi, what are you doing at the end of the game? Why aren't you doing this during the game? And then why aren't you losing your mind during the game? And then I watched the tape back, and he had a really good game. A couple misses here and there, but a really good game. And then it made me think back to, okay, what are we doing here, Malachi? This is obviously a performative. This is obviously sending a message to, you're obviously trying to convey something. And I thought back to anytime I watched hockey playoffs. Maybe you haven't watched much NHL. Maybe you're not a hockey guy or girl. But in the end of games in the hockey playoffs, when one team is winning by a lot and the other team is losing by a lot, it's a 7-game series. You got to win 4, right? You got to win 4 to move on. Many times the losing team near the end of the game will start a fight. We'll just start a fight. We're losing 4-1, 3-1, we're losing 3-0, whatever the case may be. Hockey is a low-scoring game, but many times at the end of the game, the losing team will start a fight, and the commentators, people are going to the penalty box. But they say the reason that they start the fight is to set the tone for the next game in the series. Perhaps Malachi, in the waning moments after the final first down had happened, was trying to set the tone for the next week in practice, was trying to set the tone for this coming up game with South Carolina. I think that there were several busts and errors from Malachi's teammates that he just was not very pleased with. So again, we'll all put this to bed. We'll all put this behind us. But I think that Malachi, it was just blown out of proportion, as Tyler Booker had to say. Okay, one more comment about Malachi, though. On my notes, I have those with access should encourage and public critique in private. You've seen Alabama players, former Alabama players, and look, the podcast space is crowded. We invite any of these former Alabama players onto our podcast space. Damian Harris, Mike Johnson, we invite you on here to defend yourself or to talk about it. Absolutely, for sure. But you're having a lot of people really go after Malachi hard. And if you're an Alabama fan, you're entitled to. You're a fan, right? This is your team. You can be upset with your player's action. That's cool. If you're a former player, you're entitled to be upset as well. You're entitled to be embarrassed as well. But I have a hard time. I just have a hard time sitting with some of these former players going into the media and heavily critiquing these former players because they lived it. They know what it's like. They remember when the media was coming against them. Now, look, I don't think it means that they should be dishonest, but I can't pick up the phone and call Malachi Moore, right? I mean, I could, but I don't have that. I don't have those contacts. And if I did, maybe that'd be great. But as a former player, if I was a former Alabama football player and I was in the media as Damian Harris is, I could get Malachi Moore's phone number. I could DM him on Instagram and probably get a response. I could find contacts from Malachi Moore and say, hey, man, you really upset me. Hey, man, I expect better from you. Hey, man, this has got to be more. You have to raise your standard. And so I have a real problem with the former players piling on, because they lived a different life. They've been in the different perspective. I think the former players should be encouraging really all the current players in media, through the media. Hey, it's a tough loss. You move on, live and learn. And sure, behind closed doors, pick up the phone and say, hey, man, this is unacceptable. Acting like that after a game is unacceptable. Playing that way is unacceptable. Just have a little bit of it just doesn't sit quite right with me. Where some of the criticism has been coming from on Malachi Moore, I think it's been very, very overblown. All right, so let's keep it going. We want to talk about Purple Turtle Roofing. We want to talk about South Carolina, and we want to talk about the Alabama injury report. So let's do it like that, just in that order. And again, you can join us on the comment section at Joe Gaither 6 or on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at Joe Gaither 6. We want to tell you about the most reliable residential roofing replacement company in Alabama and Mississippi, Purple Turtle Roofing. Whether it's addressing leaks, storm damage, or general wear and tear, Purple Turtle Roofing is going to be there to deliver exceptional roof repair for your property. They're the leading expert in local residential roofing solutions, specializing in providing unparalleled service and quality craftsmanship for all your roof replacement needs. Call Dustin and his team today at 877-PT-ROOF-5 for your free roof inspection. That's 877-787-6635 to schedule your appointment, and one of the qualified employees will come check out your roof for free and make sure you're prepared for all of life's storms. You can visit them online today at roofturtle.com. We appreciate Dustin Foley and his team for sponsoring the program. With all kinds of storms going on across the Southeast, we are prayerful for the people in Florida dealing with Hurricane Milton, and we're prayerful for everybody in North Carolina dealing with fallout as well. You do not want to be in that situation. Now, obviously, those are extreme situations. Avoid that if you can. Get your roof checked out today. Call Dustin Foley, 1-877-PT-ROOF-5. Visit them online at roofturtle.com. All right, let's keep it going. We're hanging out in the Derek Daniels studio. Call 205-758-3391. Call and see how much Derek can save you today. We're going to talk about South Carolina because we got to move on. You got to move on from the Vanderbilt game at some point, and it's Wednesday. Got to buck up and move on. I was on the Stingray show on Tide 100.9, and he said if you had a message to Alabama fans, what would it be? And quite simply, it's this: toughen up a little bit. Welcome to new college football, where the transfer portal and NIL has made parity a thing. I know you all didn't believe it. You all thought the haves would have more and the have-nots would not have any, but Vanderbilt now has an offense, and Vanderbilt has enough skill position players to hang and beat with Alabama. The NIL and transfer portal era is here. and very, very few teams will go undefeated. You got Oregon and Ohio State this weekend. One of those premier teams will take a loss. Texas and Oklahoma this weekend. We'll see if Oklahoma can take down the Longhorns, but you've got lots of big games for all these teams that are ahead of Alabama. I think that many of these teams will end up taking a loss. Any given Saturday is never more apparent than it is today. And so, look, toughen up, Alabama fans. You got to move on. South Carolina's coming to Tuscaloosa, 11 a.m. on Saturday. Saban Field, Bryant-Denny Stadium. You're going to be there. We'll be there with BamaCentral.com. Katie Wyndham will be leading our coverage. We'll have Hunter DeCiver and myself. We'll have Edwin Stanton and more in the Bryant-Denny Stadium press box. And we'll see what happens. Now, look, I've looked at South Carolina's game against LSU and a half of a game against Kentucky. I will continue to watch the game against Kentucky, and then I will watch their game against Ole Miss this past week. What we're doing is we are previewing what we're doing tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning on BamaCentral.com, we will be writing the cover. We've written 2 of the covers already this week. This morning's cover, a little bit simple with the Alabama running backs, just kind of their usage and praising their usage in the pass protection game. I know that's not really how we all want them to be used, but they were getting a lot of praise for their pass protection. So we wrote that today. Monday, obviously, we wrote the things I noticed. And it focused around Alabama's poor tackling. Now, tomorrow, for the cover, we're going to be focusing on South Carolina, and we're going to be focusing on their defensive line and really what they're doing on their defensive line to be so effective, affecting the quarterback and getting into the run game. And so that will be our focus tomorrow on BamaCentral.com. But what we've noticed already about South Carolina are a couple of things that make me a little concerned for Alabama. And the first thing is quarterback run. We've talked about it with Byron Brown. Goodness gracious, Diego Pavia did it just enough. You've seen it with several of these quarterbacks. Tyler Van Dyke on the first drive with Wisconsin. Not really so much with Braden Locke, but quarterback run has been a problem for Alabama all year long. Now, TJ Finley, I'm sorry, didn't have the cojones to pull it down and run. And so that was a game that wasn't really a factor. But it will be a factor against South Carolina. Lenore Sellers and Robbie Ashford. You remember it. Robbie Ashford last year right there in Bryant-Denny Stadium. Oh, it was last year, 2 years ago. Right there in Bryant-Denny Stadium, runs all around. Granted, Auburn had never really had a chance in the game because they couldn't throw the football. But Robbie Ashford had a nice little game running for over 100 yards and staying, somewhat, what was it, 42-21, something like that Alabama beat Auburn. But they never really were threatened. Now, Robbie Ashford is still the same quarterback. Is still the same guy. He's played sporadically behind Lenore Sellers, and he's the same exact guy. Good little athlete, deficient passer, able to complete, little passes over the middle here and there, and able to chuck up a bomb and a prayer, but overall a deficient passer. Lenore Sellers, a little better passer. Not great, but a little better passer. When I look at Lenore Sellers, oh, don't crucify me, Alabama fans, but when I look at Lenore Sellers, I see a really poor man's Jalen Milroe. I see a poor man's Jalen Milroe in the fact that he's a big old guy. He's mobile, but he's not near as fast as Jalen Milroe. Not near as fast as Jalen. He's not, I don't want to say Cam Newton, but like big and plodding. Not near as fast as Jalen Milroe. And then his game is really throwing the ball down the field. Throwing the ball down the field and letting his receivers make some plays. And so I think Alabama is going to be ready for that. And because of the passing game deficiencies that South Carolina is going to come into the game, I think that Alabama's defense has an upper hand. Look, they're not going to be running triple option. They're going to be running a little bit of zone. They're going to be running a little bit of zone read. It's going to look different. Now, you will have to play assignment football, but it will look different for Alabama. And because it'll look different, I think that you'll be able to stop it schematically. That's not going to be an issue. It's just going to be the same thing. Look, if Alabama had brought its lunch pail last week against Vanderbilt, you won the game. Simple as that. You can break down Kane Womack's scheme. You can break down the offensive, red zone play calling, whatever you want to break down schematically. But if Alabama brings their lunch pail and brings its attitude last week in Nashville, you win the game. And it's going to be the same sort of thing this week. If you bring your attitude, if you play assignment football, if you just do your job and win your box from a defensive standpoint, then South Carolina is not really going to hurt you. They only scored 3 points this past week against Ole Miss. You're a better defense than Ole Miss. Come on, you're not going to let Pete Golding outshine you, are you? Ooh, we'll see. That'll make for an interesting comparison at the end of the day on Saturday. But you see the quarterback running, Lenore Sellers and Robbie Ashford. Lenore Sellers running, 15 times this past week against Ole Miss? Is that what I have? Yeah, 15 times for 55 yards, 10 times for 88 yards against LSU with 2 touchdowns. 22 times against Old Dominion for 68 yards and a touchdown. Now only 8 times against Kentucky. Got a little bit banged up. And so that's where you got Robbie Ashford involved. Still just struggling throwing the football. Both guys. Robbie Ashford, what's your completion percentage on the year? 69%. Nice. And then his counterpart, Lenore Sellers, his completion percentage is 57%. Not good. Not good at all, really. And so if you see Lenore Sellers, if he's healthy enough to play, and right now we think that he will be, then Alabama's going to be at an advantageous position, really just trying to bottle up the running game with Rocket Sanders, Lenore Sellers, and the sporadic, occasional Robbie Ashford. Now, Rocket Sanders is a name you all remember, transferred from Arkansas, and he's had a nice little game. He's had a nice little 3 or 4 5 game stretch for South Carolina. He's got 315 yards and 4 touchdowns. He's physical. He's explosive. He's going to run through your arm tackles, Alabama, if you continue to tackle with just your arms. If you choose to not bring your feet on these tackles, if that continues to be a trend, then Rocket Sanders is going to run right through you. Now, is he the greatest running back in the conference? Is he the greatest running back in college football? No, but he's a good running back. He's a really talented running back. And if you do not tackle with proper technique, you're going to be in trouble on Saturday against Rocket Sanders. It's just going to be simple as that. And obviously, you're going to be trying to bottle him up and get South Carolina into long yardage situations, forcing Lenore Sellers to throw into kind of the teeth of your defense. And if you do that, I think you'll see Alabama get some turnovers on the day. Now, the defensive side of the ball, it might make Alabama frustrated because this defensive line is probably the best defensive line that you have seen all year long. No disrespect to Georgia. Georgia's defensive line, very, very, very good. Really, really top notch. Maybe a top 10 defensive line in the country, but South Carolina's is really good as well. With Dylan Stewart, with Kyle Kennard, and with Tonka Hemingway. It's Kennard. I wrote Leonard on my notes, but it's Kennard. Kyle Kennard with five sacks off the edge. He's transferred in from Georgia Tech, and then you've got your boy Dylan Stewart, who's a big time prospect. True freshman, 5-star prospect, 3.5 sacks as well. You've just got a real presence on the South Carolina defensive front, and that's what we'll focus our article on for BamaCentral tomorrow. Right there on the cover, it'll be there 6 a.m. You can check it out, Alabama Crimson Tide on SI, to see our findings. But so far, I'm seeing lots of twist stunts, lots of mixing up the looks up front, whether we're putting 3 up, 4 up, 5 up, 6, 7 up. You're getting lots of guys on the line of scrimmage, and you're mixing up who's coming, who's dropping out. You're changing the looks for your quarterbacks, and because of that, South Carolina has really, let's just do this quick math here. 5.5, 3.5, that's 9, right? 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 sacks on the season. So really affecting the quarterback. And for Alabama, this becomes a problem to me. And the penetration becomes a problem for me. The tackles for a loss are really high as well. What's this? 8 and 5 is 13, 14, 15 is 16, it's 18, it's 22. So you're over 30, 35 tackles for a loss on the season. Just rough math right there as I scroll on down there. If Alabama is forced into third and long situations, I mean, look, Alabama's been really good at explosive downs and scoring explosive plays, getting, humongous chunk plays. So it doesn't always matter to fall down behind the sticks. But I think that some of those explosive plays are more likely to come when you're in advantageous down and distance situations. When you're in 2nd and 5, when you're in 3rd and 2, when you're in 3rd and 3, when you're in 2nd and 4, you're really dictating to the defense. And that's when you can find these explosive plays because it's 3rd and 2. They've got to guard against these certain things if they don't want us to get a first down. Well, that allows us to manipulate other things, and boom, big play possibility. And so South Carolina's defensive front really does concern me for Saturday because Alabama's production has been so hot and cold. I mean, when it's hot, hot as can be. I mean, you can score from anywhere on the field. You really can. Brian Williams' prayer shot from anywhere on the field. Jalen Miller can run from anywhere in the field. You've seen Justice Haynes 85-yard run from anywhere on the field. But it's the consistency that really will be tested on Saturday. And so it'll be another chance for Alabama's offense to try to find some consistency, because South Carolina's defensive front is really, really nasty and really, really good at getting penetration. And so we'll see how Jalen Milroe and the Alabama offensive line deals with the penetration and deals with this defensive front. All right. One more topic for the day, and we appreciate everybody who's watched us here on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube at Joe Gaither 6, and watched us on the BamaCentral YouTube channel. You can find us right there. Lots of great information on the BamaCentral YouTube channel. You can see all of our interviews with the Crimson Tide assistant coaches today. Lots of them answering questions about the Vanderbilt loss. You can see it on the BamaCentral YouTube channel. Once again, we're in the Derek Daniel State Farm in Northport studio. You can call Derek Daniel 205-758-3391. Call Derek and see how much he can save you today. Now, we got one more topic, and it's the injury report that's about to come out. And you've got Yanzi Pierre, who is on Instagram and kind of doing a half selfie. You can barely see him, but he has obviously undergone some sort of surgery. Terrible, terrible, terrible for the redshirt freshman, because I think that he is a future star on this defense and got himself some reps this past week against Vanderbilt, but obviously has hurt himself. Coach Kalen DeBoer saying, yeah, he is out this weekend. No Yanzi Pierre this weekend. Kind of unknown what his injury is. I think it's going to be an upper body injury for Yanzi Pierre. Now, the two wide receivers. You lost Kobe Prentice in the game. You never saw Kendrick Law because of injury in the Georgia game. And Coach Kalen DeBoer on the coaches teleconference today saying that both those guys have practiced today. I think you need Kendrick Law back in action. I think you really need them both. Yes, for sure, you need them both. The experience that Kobe Prentice gives you, I think Kobe Prentice is an underrated killer. I shouldn't say that. He's a cold-blooded player. I think he's an underrated, just really good player. And I think he's always doing his assignment. I think that he is a player that you can count on. And so, yeah, you'd love to get Kobe back. But Kendrick Law, what he is giving you in the run game, what he gives you, what he gives you in his skill set, get the ball into his hands. Just get the ball into Kendrick Law's hands and watch him go. Been really frustrating so far, early part of the season, not getting Kendrick Law too involved in the offense. Now, you have seen his highlights, blocking his tail off, really dictating to the opposing secondaries, but had a really hard time getting him the ball, getting him involved in the offense, and hopefully that will change going forward as the season progresses. Now that he's back healthy, I do expect him to be involved in the game this weekend. Kobe Prentice as well. So, that's going to do it for our show today. We talked about Malachi Moore. We talked about the Alabama defense some more. Was Kane Womack too arrogant over the weekend? Did he just assume that his guys would win too much? Yeah, maybe a little bit. But Alabama players, they should have won. It's simple. It came down to playmaking. And Vanderbilt made the plays, and the Alabama players didn't. We talked about Malachi Moore talking and revealing that he wants the plays in faster. I think he's absolutely right. I do question maybe the timing of that getting out, but I do think he is absolutely right. We talked about the South Carolina offensive and defensive kind of concerns for me this weekend. I'm not concerned about what South Carolina can do offensively, maybe both sides of the ball as far as, running and passing. But their quarterback run does threaten Alabama. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I do think their defensive line is good enough to really bottle up Alabama offensively as a whole, running and passing. And so it's going to be an issue for Alabama to deal with on Saturday. We will dive further into it tomorrow. After we've done our study, we'll give our 3 players to watch for the game and more tomorrow on tomorrow's program. We appreciate everybody who's joined us on the show today. We want to remind you one more time about our friends Druid City Music Hall. They're the premier place for live music on the Strip. You can find them online at druidcitymusichall.com/shows. I'm actually going to get out of here because I'm going to go see Red Farron tonight at Druid City Music Hall. Cannot wait for that. Little country music down there at Druid City Music Hall. Might have me some Waffle House right next door. You can get your tickets online, druidcitymusichall.com/shows. Check out their entire lineup tonight. Red Farron. Tomorrow, EME, Sam Barber on Friday, even a show on Sunday, Ryan Beatty. And then we turn it over into a new week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday show as we keep October going at Druid City Music Hall. So check out their lineup. Lots of great musical acts down on the Strip. Druid City Music Hall will be a proud that they are part of the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. We're proud that you're part of the Joe Gaither Show. Tell a friend about the show. Send them the show on YouTube, or maybe they'll like it better on Apple Music. Let them comment on the show. Tell them, check out the show and follow the Crimson Tide with us. This is the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com.